Hello and welcome to another episode of Gladiators, the show where we discuss and debate literature in all of its forms. If it's written work, it's game. Let's meet the panel.
Hi, I'm Larry.
Hi, I'm Jesi.
Nicole.
And I'm Josh. And today we are going to be going over a short story by Ernest Hemingway. We've gone over 3 of his short works, Hills Like White Elephants, Snows of Kilimanjaro, and the Capital of the World. Today we're going to be going over Soldier's Home, which we touched upon in my senior seminar class, which was about literature and war. But we're going to go into it a little bit more here. And Nicole, you have a discussion starter for this one?
Yeah, so for Soldier's Home, while I was reading it, I was becoming very invested in kind of the perspective that you get from the main character and how it takes you through his psychosis of coming home from war. So we don't really see other characters' input outside of his family. So my discussion starter was, do you think that the point of view that Hemingway uses to express this story adds to or takes away from the theme and experience of that war basis?
I think it adds to it.
Yeah.
I think we need to have perspectives like this because there are so many of us, and I'm sure that most of us, I would say I would be that feel in that matter unless I'm reading it. We don't really have that physical feeling that one has when they are experiencing and coming home from war, and it almost seems like people not only can they not feel it, they don't want to feel it. Mm-hmm. They only want to feel so much.
Yeah, I mean, you definitely get the sense from our character. Was it Krebs?
Krebs, yeah.
Krebs coming home. I kept wanting him to call him Krabs the whole time. I thought that was Krebs is coming home and seeing his kind of, you're seeing his perspective. You're definitely more connected to him than any other character in the story. But there's still this essence of detachment, and I feel that it's so accurately expressed what I think many probably were feeling coming home, especially after World War I, which was such a, this, not that every war isn't trying, but World War I is, this expression of the entire world's traumas coming together, and, to see that one soldier's detachment and kind of struggle to return back to a normal life after experiencing something that traumatic was really heartening.
Doesn't even get the proper homecoming because he was late.
Mm-hmm.
Because he and his crew came later.
Mm-hmm.
They only want to observe it when they feel it's, I hate to use the word, popular to observe it.
Or when it's politically.
I think this story could have been written in a ton of different ways, and I think Hemingway's point to get across would have only gotten across if it was written in the viewpoint of Krebs. I think, as you said, even though you're kind of in his mind, you're still disconnected. And like you said, that's because, at least I would imagine, you come back from war, you are disconnected from everything that you once called home because you've been away for so long, and, following orders and, doing things a certain way, and, doing what I would imagine are terrible things that you don't actually want to do, but you have to do it for your survival and everything. So when you come back home to civilization, you almost feel like you don't belong there.
And that's why I think the title was really important too, because, and just take a step back before I lose my train of thought, what you're saying is, I completely agree. I think this was the only point of view to do it from. And it wasn't first person from Krebs. It was still a third person point of view. But we don't get that third person omniscient where every character in the story is, of the same importance. You really get that third person limited where he is the focal point. And I think it's so important. But the title, like you said, like he's coming home, but it's Soldier's Home. But is it anymore? And that's how I feel the title really kind of broke the barrier of making the audience think about what that really meant, what Soldier's Home really meant to Krebs, to the audience, because I was, I said I would tackle this work, and I was thinking, Soldier's Home, it's going to be about homecoming, it's, I was anticipating all these things, and then I started reading and realizing that, it's his homecoming, and it's his place of residency, and maybe it's the house where he grew up, but is after all the turmoil that he's been through, after all the things that have happened, is this his home?
I think not only that, it's you realize how quickly something can disappear. When you go to war, all you see is destruction. And when you come back, it's like, this might be where I grew up, but, in a blink of an eye, it could be gone.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I think that's what he's struggling with, is trying to maybe find that attachment. Like when he tells, I don't know if he accidentally tells her, or that he doesn't love her, his mother. I think he just kind of did it like just naturally, how he doesn't love anything anymore because he doesn't have a connection to anything, because he's like afraid it's just going to disappear, because that's what would happen in war. You had an attachment to something, it was gone.
That's like how he responded to when she said that she prayed to God for him, and to him it really
There was no
didn't matter anymore, because after what he saw in war, would a loving God really let that happen?
Right. And I think a lot of it too, the quotes that kept standing out to me was when he was saying, I don't want to lie anymore. He didn't want to tell lies anymore. And, he was watching the young girls come home, and I think it was more reminiscent of how he would have been, because he's a young man. He's not, he's not old. So I think I read it at first and I was like a little thrown by that, but then I had to readjust and think, this kid's probably only 21, 22 years old. Before he went off to war, watching the young girls come home, and this was a fond activity, and now he's so ripped of any joy that even this simple joy of watching the women come home with their short haircuts and happiness doesn't make him feel anything anymore.
I feel like he just objectifies everything and everyone, because he can't see, in a way, war kind of trains you not to see the person you're shooting at as a person. And after doing that for so long, I feel like his mother's just a person. These girls that he's watching are just objects. His mother's just an object. His brother, his sister, his father, it's all just objects. It's pointless.
And he says, I don't want to lie anymore, and he doesn't. He admits, his mother says, what do you want? What do you want to do? Do you love me? And he, for the first time in the story, is honest, and look at the repercussions of being honest with who he now is. It's it's the knowledge of things are never going to be the same, and I have to learn to cope and accept that.
And on their point of view, the point of view that we get from them, but we can only put the pieces together, that they feel as if he's gone away and he's come back, same person, same form, but when someone like that goes away, they're like an emotional jigsaw puzzle, and there's plenty of pieces that are gone, and some of them are replaced by different points of view, and a lot of it is influenced by post-traumatic stress.
And I think they also kind of expect, you have, when I haven't seen my parents for a long time, I'm so excited to see them, and I want to hug them and love them and spend time with them. And here he is coming back, and that's what they're expecting, because
he's a shell.
Normal people, that's what they do. But like you said, he's a shell. He went off and he had to, again, disconnect from everything. So he comes back, and what they're expecting is not what they're getting. And so I feel like his mother was kind of I don't agree with how she was like, no, you have to pray with me, don't you love me, crying and things okay, yeah,
I can't
hard.
But she's also entitled to her own emotional reaction.
Yeah,
I kind of
I
feel
can
that people use mainly older relatives on their younger relatives. If you love me, you do this. If you love me,
if you love me, you'll have grandchildren from me. Things
That's my grandmother. If you love me, you'd eat this banana.
Italian grandmother. So you're not hungry? No, I need you all this food.
Yeah.
And that's what she's coming at him from this place of
trying to help.
Yeah, she's trying to fulfill him in the ways that maybe he used to be fulfilled, but that's not going to sustain him anymore.
And it's interesting that you talk about that he's a shell, because after World War I, that's when they first came up with the post-traumatic stress disorder, and they called it shell shock at first. And I think it's it's kind of tragic, right? That the people have to go through that, and then they come back and there's that alienation of having a lie, because nobody wants to know
what actually happened.
Yeah.
Yeah, they only want to know so much. They only want to know what they feel that they can handle
or make sense out of.
Yeah.
And I think that
and the media only makes it worse. The media, to them, the image of the war was three guys putting down the flag at the top of Iwo Jima.
Yeah.
Bombs being dropped.
When there were so many more gruesome images, because there's no winners in war. People die. People on both sides die. It's only the people that are not in the war and the political leaders that really get on the winning side that really celebrate.
Right, and this is World War I, like you were saying earlier. Right? It's the first modern war, they call it, because of the style, the technology between the gas and the machine guns and the planes and the bombs and no man's land and all that nonsense, whatever you want to call it. It's
the understanding of war, I feel like, is different. Like nowadays, we understand everything that comes with war, whereas I feel like
Some people aren't as good as acknowledgement that the
Yeah.
information is there.
But exactly. Like we can understand, like what you just said. We go to war. There's no winners,
Right.
but they didn't have that kind of mentality.
And
back
everyone
then.
that was home was just happy for the war to be over, but those men had been in an alternate reality for a long time, and the
Exactly.
war wasn't over for them. It was still on.
And I feel like we understand that now. So when our soldiers come home, we can sympathize. We can help them the way they need to be helped. Whereas, like you said back when, because I didn't know PTSD was kind of discovered, for lack of a better word, after World War I. But I mean, that just goes to show they don't understand what he was going through. So they just, or what he's experiencing, how he's seeing the world. And they just, his family just doesn't get it. So they can't help him. And they're trying to, make things normal when he doesn't really need normal. He needs understanding.
Absolutely. I agree.
Yeah, I'm not sure what he needs. It's difficult to.
It's
difficult to say.
Only he can. Only somebody that's been in his position or in something similar can understand and express that.
I think it's a nice transcendent work too, because while there's a lot of time specific things that you can learn by knowing the time frame of the war and knowing that what specifically he's coming back from, I think these are still issues and emotions that soldiers come home from war today feeling. I think it's kind of a timeless expression of this idea of returning to normalcy and whether or not it can be achieved for everyone.
Yeah.
I don't think. I think if you go to war, you're never going to, experience normalcy ever again. It's something that changes, your very core. At least I would assume so. I can't really say it from experience.
It's like, the thing with PTSD, from what I understand, is that they have to come to terms with the elements of their personality that they would have never even known existed if they weren't in the circumstance in which that part of them had to come out in order to, commit the deeds that needed to be done in order to survive. So trying to reconcile that with just normal, everyday American life is, that's a great challenge.
I agree.
Already, do we have any final thoughts?
I have just a question, I guess. Like, with the relationship with the sister, right, is different. He seems like he's more able to talk to her.
I think that sibling bonds sometimes are a lot easier in situations of high stress because siblings don't typically have expectations of one another the way that parents do. When mom came home and had an expectation and a desire to make things better, and I have a younger brother myself, and I have hopes for him and dreams for him, and I want good things for his life. But I don't have the same expectancies. It would never have bothered me if he had
And his
it's
sister,
like,
You're not trying to shepherd his life.
Right, it's a different situation, whereas we're both growing and learning life together, different experiences and all, so I feel like it was almost more of a welcome release for him to be with someone more on his level than people with all these expectations.
and she just wanted him to watch her play baseball inside.
Whereas like the mother almost kind of seemed nagging. You need to get a job. You need to settle down. You
Right,
need to
and
have
it was
a girl, you need to
taking
do
it
this.
off of him for once. It wasn't it was probably a welcome relief to have the focus be on his sister. Sure, I'll come watch you play indoor baseball.
Yeah.
At first, he was a bit hesitant, but because he didn't want to confirm that he could, or that he had emotionally could do so. But at the end of the book, at the end of the story, he's on his way to watch her play.
Yeah, he's on his way to figure out what he's going to do too. So
But
his mom
that's
kind
up
of
to
gave
him.
kind of gave him that kick, which maybe he needed to start like figuring out exactly what he's going to do.
See, I took that differently. I didn't think that it was more of a, like, figuring out what I'm going to do with life. I thought it was more of like figuring out what I'm going to do with this situation. Like, how am I going to continue this charade or this facade, or how am I going to get through like this turmoil? I thought it was more of like a personal what now than
Yeah, but it's still a kick in some way.
in some direction. Yeah, you're right.
Like
Which
he
is
talks
better
about
than
leaving.
staying
Like
stationary,
he knows right off the bat that he's not going to be able to work for his father. Right? He says that he'd rather go to, I think he said Kansas City or someplace away from that town in order to find a job. But you know, it is kind of a wake up call. And I think when he tells his mother he doesn't love him, I think he does love her. I think so, because you know, he sure feels bad about it as soon as he says it. You know, and he gets up.
But
and he goes
guilt
through
and
the-
love are two very different things. I feel guilty about things that, because I feel that I could have handled them better, because I feel guilty when I hurt other people, but it doesn't necessarily mean that I love them.
I mean, I think he
don't
does.
know.
I think he definitely does love his mother. It's just he doesn't know how to show it because he didn't get to experience any love for however long he was gone on.
Well, do you
Remember?
think he ever
I think he's just
loved
reached-
her before he left, or do you think he just never had to consider whether or not he did, and now coming back, he's reconsidering everything?
I mean, I think everybody has some sort of love for their mother, like at some level. It might not be very strong, but there's some sort of love for the person who brought you into this world. And I think he's not quite. I don't know how to
I think
put it into words.
I think what he's doing there is he's just rejecting the proposition that's being put on him, like the
Okay.
expectation. I think he's just
Rejecting
saying whatever to end that.
conversation.
Yeah,
I could see that.
I saw it more as a like for years you're being told what to do, told what to feel, told what to think, told what to your schedule every single day. And it's like now he's
it all on his own.
now he has to like you said, like do it by himself. Nobody's there to tell him what to do, what to say, what to feel. And here, like when you go to war, you're not being like, oh, well, go love that over there. Take your love time. He had nothing to love for however long he was gone. And so when he's faced with, okay, my mother's love, my sister's love, I'm supposed to love them back, but I don't feel anything. And like you said before, it was his honesty. He was just honest. Like, I don't feel love for you right now because I don't know how to. And I think his poor mother, no mother wants to hear that their child doesn't love them, but
Has anybody watched The Hurt Locker?
I
yeah.
have not.
That is such a grueling movie that pretty much depicts the fact that war is a drug, and I don't want to spoil too much, but just the reaction of him coming home and just not being able to fit in
They have
is just.
I feel like this is a terrible comparison, but like how they say like prisoners, like criminals, how they are so used to being in jail that they're like they can't live among civilians because they don't know how
They need to be rehabbed to do so.
Yeah.
That's what they.
And
That's
so-
what
exactly,
they.
so
That's
does
how they
it.
depicted it in the Shawshank Redemption. They'll take as much as they can out of you, and deny you parole time after time, and then finally they'll just say they'll just give you the parole when you're old enough and you really can't do anything anymore. Alrighty, if you're interested in checking out Ernest Hemingway's short stories, here is a collection that I got of his, the short stories of Ernest Hemingway. I got this from one of my favorite used bookstores, Secondhand Books. This includes everything from Hills Like White Elephants to The Snows of Kilimanjaro to Capital of the World to Soldier's Home, and just about everything else in between. Yep, many more. Be sure to join us next time for another episode of Literary Gladiators. For now, keep reading.